Hey everybody out there in YouTube land, this is Sam Dennehy, aka Halfass Customs, and this episode of Halfass Presents the podcast, we're going to have Walt Weiss. He's more of a model railroader, but he's got a really neat idea for part of his layout that is very automobile themed and more TV and movie related. So I'm hoping he'll have the opportunity to show us in this episode of that themed railroad scene section of his layout and get to know a little bit more about Walt Weiss and his love for the hobby and what keeps him in it. So stay tuned because I think this will be a very interesting episode. Be right back. Hey everybody out there in YouTube land, Sam Dennehy, aka Halfass Customs, and this is Halfass Presents the podcast. Like I said in the intro monologue, our guest today is Walt Weiss.
Yep. You got it.
Walt, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got in this hobby?
Well, I'm mostly a model railroader, but I've played around with a lot of other hobbies. I've crashed more than my fair share of RC planes and helicopters. It's all kind of been because everything kind of relates to each other. You get this whole, hey, look, I can do this in model railroading, and if I apply this to this, so look, I can do this to this airplane. I can make this airplane run this way, or I can make this RC car do this or whatever. So I've played around with a lot of it, and I started playing with trains when I was 8, and it's been 40 years now. I got into the hobby at the age of 6. My grandfather had built an 1.5 inch to the foot scale live steam locomotive, and actually I can do this. Hopefully this ought to show up. The locomotive and the tender, fully loaded, go about 1,100 pounds.
Wow.
It's about 9 feet long.
Holy cows.
Yeah, and it burns coal, heats water. It's an honest to goodness steam locomotive. You sit on it, you ride it, you shovel coal into it and keep putting water in it. And at the age of 6, I was pretty fascinated. It's like, oh, hey, this is cool. I want one of these.
Right.
And then at the age of 7, about a year later, he let me drive it, but it was one of those, okay, this is how you make it go forward. This is how you make it stop. This is how you make it go backwards. I might have run it like maybe 100 yards forward and then 100 yards backwards. But at that point, I was hooked.
Right.
So here I am, 40 years later. My grandfather has passed on. My cousin and I share his locomotive now. I've got about $25,000 worth of HO scale living in my basement.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and as you could guess, my wife looks at me and goes, "Are you crazy?"
Clearly, yeah. But in a good way.
and of course, I look at her and go, "Yeah, what are you new here?"
Right. You remember who married me, okay?
Remember, you chose me, okay?
Right. Been doing it a lot longer than I've known you for, so you had to commit to this.
Yeah. Well, and my wife and I, we've been married for, it'll be 6 years this May, so call it 5.5 years, but we've known each other. This past October was our, I guess the easiest way to put it was our 29th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
So we've known each other for a pretty long time.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
And that's why I joke around. She says, "Are you new?"
Right. Have you been asleep this whole time?
Where have you been? But so like that got me initially into the hobby, and my parents kind of encouraged it. And so about 8, I had a layout in the basement, and it was just kind of, your simple kid thing. And as I've gone on, I've just gotten more and more, progressed more and more into it. And I've been lucky enough. I've actually worked for a couple of tourist railroads, so I've actually operated full-size steam locomotives pulling passengers.
Oh, that's awesome.
On tourist railroads. It's a good time, and I have to tell you, it'll make your head swell up really big when you're sitting in the cab of a steam locomotive and you're sweating yourself to death, and
Right.
It's 95 degrees in the middle of the summer, and you look down out of the cab window, and here's this kid, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, little boy, little girl, whatever, and they're just staring up at you with like hero worship.
Yeah,
and
I bet.
Like, okay.
Here's a funny note. That as much as I'm not into trains, I'm more into cars. That would be my retirement dream job, is to work on a steam locomotive and like drive it, or you be the coal guy, whatever.
Yeah.
That would be my retirement dream job for the rest of my life. I think it'd be awesome.
It's funny you say that, because I joke with my wife. I say, when we both retire, we're going to move to Florida, and I'm going to get a job playing with trains at Disney.
Yes, because, well, yeah, you could do that. I don't see, Disney isn't a live steam engine though. I think it's mostly gas powered and
no, they're locomotives, because I've got a couple connections there. Their locomotives are propane fired.
Okay. Yes.
So they burn propane.
Oh, gas propane.
Powered, but they burn propane. So
okay.
No dirty coal or oil,
yeah, right,
or anything like that. But
because I was born in Southern California, and we had Disneyland there, which never was an actual real steam locomotive, but we had another theme park called Knott's Berry Farm.
Yep.
Literally just a few miles down the road from it, and that is Southern California's only year-round actual steam engine.
Yep.
And I thought that was pretty neat to know that.
It is. Well, I mean, I think we've all had times where we've taken breaks in our hobbies. One of my breaks, I spent 20 years in the Navy driving submarines.
Wow.
Yeah,
Hey, well, thank you for your service.
I'm a little different from the rest of us. But
clearly you like driving stuff, though.
Well, I was actually, and it's funny how everything dovetails. I was a navigation electronics technician, so all the equipment used to handle the ship and navigate it was the stuff I worked on. And it's funny how times I just fall back on that, and it's like, hey, look, wiring is wiring. It doesn't matter if you're using it for a GPS system or a HO scale locomotive.
Right.
But so I wasn't as into it while I was in the Navy, but one of my duty stations was San Diego. And so I made it a point, went to Disneyland, went out to Knott's Berry Farm, went to the California State Railroad Museum. The one place I didn't get to was, and this is something you and I will have to talk about later, but one of the places I wanted to go to and didn't get to was Railtown 1897, which, for all you Back to the Future fans, is the home of number 3, which was number 131 in Back to the Future Part 3.
Yep.
And so
I've never been there neither.
I've heard it's just amazing, because it's literally, you step on the property and it's literally like you've been transported back to this turn of the century railroad maintenance area sort of place.
That's neat.
So that was one place I'd like to see. But yeah, so I got into the trains really young and kept up with them. And then as I got near the end of my career and was able to be a little bit more stable, I started getting more and more into it. And then after I retired, a couple years after I retired, I moved back here to Ohio, the suburbs of Cleveland. And so I've just been playing with it ever since, but I've also been doing custom work. I do paint and design and layout building and that sort of thing. And it's just one of those things that gives me something extra to do. It helps bring in a little bit of money, but I've probably, just like you, I've probably given away more of my work than I've been paid for.
Right. Yeah, I've been guilty of that. I never charge like what any of my cars probably should cost. I mean, except for the Ghostbusters car, but I mean, even that probably is worth more.
Oh,
but I don't know how many people would pay for it if it was more.
No, I mean, I've got one of your ectomobiles.
Yes, you do.
And the DeLorean is on the way.
Yes, it is.
And I mean, the ectomobile, I'm just, every time I look at it, I'm floored, and I can't tell you how many compliments I've gotten on it. People look at it and go, "Holy cow, man, that's freaking amazing!" And I
Yeah,
like, that's the guy. And
right.
And it's funny. I'll get to the whole theory behind that in a minute, but I just look at it and we all have our gifts. My big thing is hand me a locomotive. I can make it look any way you want it to look and whatever. But I sit and look at it like if it had been up to me, I never would have had an actual accurate ectomobile on my railroad.
No, most people wouldn't. Like 99% of the world wouldn't have an accurate one. Not in this scale, at least.
Mm-mm. I agree with you. I don't think they would have either. But so you and I were talking on Facebook, and I saw it, and I was like, "Hey," and you were like, "Yeah, sure." And so we made it happen. And my railroad is the Cherry Valley Railroad, and there is an actual prototype for it. I don't follow it real closely, but it's set. The prototype was in East Central Ohio, where I was born. Tiny little town, and it's literally one of those towns, Sam. Literally, if you blink, you're through.
Wow.
It's literally,
I would like to go there.
It's literally maybe a mile and a half long by maybe a mile wide.
Wow.
Tiny little
I
town.
love that.
Population of, I think the last census said the population was like 1,800 people for the whole town. And I'm like,
that's a tiny town.
We've got more students in the high school in the city I live in than they've got in the entire town.
Right.
But so the original railroad, born, lived, and died all between about 1890 and 1935. And I kind of played around with it and took a license on history. And so they managed to hang on till the war traffic of World War II, and now it's 1960, and they've managed to get almost to the lake. And I wanted to be able, the south end is going to be pretty accurate to the actual town of Latonia where I was born. But the north end I wanted to be able to have some fun with. And I'm a big admirer of John Allen, his world famous Gory and Defeated Railroad. And I'm a big fan of Tony Custer and his Allegheny Midland and his nickel plate third sub. Bill Darnaby and his Mommy Route Railroad. And they all have a little bit of fun with it. They stick these little Easter eggs in here and there.
Right.
And I mean, John Allen was probably the most noted for it. I mean, for pity's sakes, the GORRE and DAPHETID, Gory and Defeated Railroad, through the AKINBAK, Aikenback Mountains. So, and then he had a Stegosaurus that he used, an HO scale Stegosaurus that he used as a switching locomotive. He had one conductor who was so fat that when the conductor would walk on top of a boxcar, the boxcar would go sway back.
Wow.
So he's actually got pictures of it. So he would put all these little Easter eggs in there, and I thought it was so funny and so cool that I said, I want to be able to do that sort of thing here. And so, yeah, my town is set in 1960. It's a steam railroad, pretty much.
The end of it.
Yeah, the end of it. It's the very end of steam.
Right.
But the Cherry Valley is still hanging on. They're still making great big clouds of black smoke. But so, yeah, there's the Ghostbusters are going to be there. Hey, it's a 59 Cadillac. It fits.
So it fits.
I'm in the process of backdating when I finish backdating it, it's going to go from being a 1966 to a 1958 Freightliner cab over, which will become Optimus Prime.
Oh, nice.
The town is named Storybrooke, which comes from the ABC TV show Once Upon a Time.
Right.
And the heroine of the series is Emma, and Emma drives, and the Beetle hasn't changed in like 60 years. But so she drives.
Yes, the longest lasting body style ever.
Yeah, I think the one she drives in the show is a 65 or a 66, but you can't tell the difference between a 58 and a 66. This is where all the Volkswagen enthusiasts are about to get mad.
Right. It's basically the tail lights and maybe the rear window, but the rest of it's all the same.
It's little things. And in HO scale, I can use a 58 and
right.
say, look, that's what she's driving. But I'm also going to put a little bit of tongue-in-cheek in there. So Emma, the sheriff of Storybrooke, whose personal car is a 58 yellow Volkswagen, doesn't realize that she's also driving Bumblebee.
Correct. Right.
And so just little bitty Easter eggs in there like that. And there's still going to be enough of it that, hey, it's not going to be like Circus City or anything like that, but it'll have a lot of those little Easter eggs in there, and people who know about it will be able to spot it and be like, oh, hey, that's pretty cool, man. How'd you do that?
Right. Yeah, that's probably one of the neatest things in this hobby as of last 10 years maybe, is people actually starting to branch out of a normal, real prototypical looking layout and do that Easter egg type stuff. And honestly, I can't say it definitively, but I almost wonder if Wonderland and Germany helped bring that idea to people's minds, because they have Easter eggs galore with movie and TV related stuff. And I think people seeing those YouTube videos probably said, oh yeah, why don't I do that? Maybe. I could be wrong.
No, I actually hadn't even thought about it before, but I think you probably got a good point, because I mean, if you haven't seen it, it is on YouTube. The Millennium Falcon landed at Newfoundland Airport.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Right. And I almost think, because I've never been there to actually time it, but I almost think they only let that thing fly at certain times of the year, or maybe certain times of the day, and it's not a continuous timed clock thing, because it's an Easter egg type deal. I mean,
yeah, it's you got to go looking for it. They're gonna work for it.
Yeah, I brought this up in another interview episode where I said the only thing about that Millennium Falcon I don't like is it lands like an airplane and it gets chartered or into the airport like it was an airplane instead of just landing straight down where it's supposed to sit. That's the only thing I don't like about it. But the fact that they made it fly on their layout, oh, it's awesome.
No, and I actually agree with you. I mean, when I first saw it, my very first thought was, "Oh my God, that is so cool."
Right. I think that was everybody's first thought.
And then, yeah, it probably was. And of course, the guys over at Miniature Wonderland are probably going, "You mean nobody thought of this before us?"
Right. Well, the
But
crazy thing is where it parks, they actually have R2D2 and C3PO standing right next to the back door where the doors go down. And I don't know what else is there because I haven't seen the video in a while, but they're there to
mm,
sit next to the walkway to get up into the ship. And I
yeah,
thought that's even cooler.
yeah. And that, but then, so after I'd watched it a couple times, I had the same thought you did. I said, "Wait a minute, Millennium Falcon don't have no wheels on the bottom. He's not
Right.
rolling anywhere."
Right. It's going to take off vertically and land vertically.
Yeah, that's it. It's it's an oversized helicopter.
Right. Yeah.
But no, but I still think it's cool that people do that, and I mean that's why I just think it's so neat, and I think you're right. I think people are starting to get to a point where they can say, "Hey, look," because it used to be. I can remember when I was a kid. I mean, when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. As a kid, it didn't matter. You
Right.
were you were playing trains. You weren't a
Yeah.
serious modeler at that age. But if you wanted to be a serious modeler, you had to actually, it had to look like something actually looked.
Right.
And then they started to introduce the whole idea of, hey, we're gonna do a little bit of, we're gonna mix a little bit of fact and fiction here. And then you got to a point where there were people who were just completely coming up with, this never existed, it never happened, there's no basis for it. In fact, it looks like it could be real,
Right. Right.
but there is no whatever.
I seen this probably years ago. And when I say years, probably 2 or 3, not like tens of years ago. Probably
Mhm.
2 or 3 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago, I saw on Facebook in one of the train groups I'm in, somebody made a apocalyptic train. And it was probably 5 cars long and it looked like it came straight out of the Mad Max movie. And I thought, now that is awesome. Somebody used their head and said, I'm going to do something that isn't typically seen, and I'm gonna like just go crazy with it, and it looked
Yeah.
awesome, like
See now, and
completely awesome.
that's see now that's really cool. Somebody coming up with that. I mean, I do know one guy. He's into O scale, and he actually, I don't know if you remember the second Mad Max movie, the one with the tanker truck in it that's decked
Yeah,
out
yeah, yeah.
fortress. He made an O scale tanker truck,
Oh, nice.
and it's like that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And
Right, right.
and he did really well. I mean, he's even got it painted to look like the real thing. He's got an O scale figure dressed up like Gibson sitting in the driver's seat,
That's cool.
and it's like that's really cool. But so I just think it's so neat that we've gotten to a place where not only do people want to do that, but it's okay to do that.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about people talking down to you or anything like that. And then it's also cool that, yeah, hey, look, we can still do this. I mean, for pity's sakes, I'm going to have a 1984 time traveling DeLorean sitting just outside of a town in 1960 Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, which will fit because thanks to the movie.
The movie,
If that movie didn't exist, that car wouldn't be in that layout.
no, it would not have been. And but so I mean, it's so neat that we've gotten to that point. I mean, there have been so many changes in all these hobbies
Right.
over the past, let's call it 15 years, but it might not be quite that much. But I mean,
Well,
just the
speaking
first,
of changes in all the hobbies, just the end of last year, I think November, it
uh-huh,
came out that the RC world and regular size RC, like 110 scale, 118,
uh-huh,
or like just the bigger scale RC cars,
uh-huh,
a company called Red Hat teamed up with a RC lowrider guy that did RC cars in 125th scale. He's the world-renowned go-to guy for RC lowriders in that scale. He teamed up with the RC company Red Hat, and they created the very first buyable in large quantity 1/10 scale 64 Impala with the hopping suspension, and it does all the tricks.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's $599, so it's up there, but they have limited runs each time they restock, and they're not gonna offer it forever. I think it's like a strictly time period thing where it's only offered for so long, and then once it's gone, it's gone. But yeah, it can hop, it can lift up and down and side to side, and it drives anywhere you want it to go. It's one of the neatest things ever, and I wish I could buy it, but I'm not an RC guy, so it'd probably just sit on my shelf once I got done and tired of it and never play with again. So it'd be kind of a waste of money. But it's only going to go up in value if you know, the longer you keep it for, because they're not going to make a shit ton of them. They're going to make a few.
Yeah, no, well, and it's the same thing. I think it's all the hobbies have gotten that way, because I can remember, like, for instance, we all the model railroad guys now, we all look at Broadway limited imports as kind of like a standard.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when Broadway Limited first got started, and believe it or not, I had the worst opinion, because I was an old school DC guy. I didn't need DCC. I didn't need sound. I didn't need any of that. Not interested. Blah, 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 blah. And I think it was probably 2002 or 2003, about that time frame. And one of the locomotives that I really like, I'm a big fan of the 484 Northern type steam locomotives. 844, 4449, 611, those ones. But I've got a bit of a soft spot for the New York Central 464 J3 Hudsons. And nobody had ever really done a good model of a Hudson. And BLI came out with their Hudson, dual mode, sound equipped. And I was like, well, I really want a Hudson. I don't care if it makes noise. I can always turn the volume down or turn the sound off. I don't care if it's dual mode, as long as it runs on my DC layout. I'm okay with it.
Right.
And I bought this locomotive. It was the first dual mode sound equipped locomotive I ever bought. I am now hopelessly addicted.
Nice.
Hopelessly. I've got, let's see, just the dual mode sound equipped stuff. 2 big boys, 4 884s, a Challenger, which is a 4664.
Right.
4 484 Northerns.
Golly.
3 284 Berkshires, 3 060s, an 080, a 260, a 460. And that's just the dual mode stuff. I still have the old-fashioned DC only analog stuff that I haven't had a chance to put a chip in yet.
Wow.
And the first steam locomotive I got as a Christmas present, it was part of, you remember Tyco?
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, they were really big into doing slot cars and that sort of thing.
Right.
They also did train sets. My parents bought me for, I think it was Christmas of my 8th birthday, they bought me the Tyco Royal Blue steam engine set. And
Yep.
It's the steam locomotive's got like 4 freight cars and a caboose, oval a track, nothing big. I still have the locomotive.
It's a nice locomotive. Just the locomotive. May not run great, but it's a nice locomotive in general.
Exactly. It's been remotored like a half a dozen times because it keeps going through those junky Tyco motors. But I keep remotoring it and it keeps running. But I look at how much things have changed. It's like, for pity's sakes, it used to be you were lucky if you could get a locomotive that ran reliably. Now you can get one that runs reliably, looks like it's a shrunken version of the real thing. It even smokes. And I just bought one of the BLI, the most recent big boy. I've gone through a few, but it's a model of Union Pacific 4014. It's got full sound in it, and when you blow the whistle, it actually has a smoke unit that blows smoke out of the whistle.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's
that is way too cool.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. I've had this I put it on Facebook a while ago when I think that company was first bringing out that big boy again, and with the whole remodeled and rewired and redesigned everything. And so that was the beginning of 2019, maybe, whatever. I don't know. Maybe late 2018,
right
2000.
Maybe late 2018. But yeah, right around there, they made a big deal about it because.
Yeah. So I put a post.
Had just gotten finished.
Right. I put a post that I've always wanted a Frankenstein, a big boy, and make it twice as long. And somebody actually gave me an internet link on the comments of a guy somewhere in the world that actually was doing that to the Challengers and the big boys. He was making them twice as long, but actually making them motorized and work. And I said, how neat and crazily weird that is, because the tender alone would just be way too long to go around any turn anywhere in this country. And he said, I don't know that the whole website was in English. Maybe it was in German, maybe Russian. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember reading much, if anything, of that, just looking at the pictures more. But yeah, I don't know if it told you that it wasn't really meant to run on a regular track, or if it was more just for looks. But it supposedly ran. I mean, I don't know.
Hey, it's kind of like that old rule 34 about what's on the internet. If it's
right, true.
Somebody else has made that.
Yeah.
Of it. Because I mean, it's funny. I had a friend of mine. He decided, because funny story. I'll admit it. Feel free to laugh. It doesn't bother me. When I was a member of a club in Grafton, Virginia, the Chesapeake Bay Railroaders.
Yeah.
They've got they're all over YouTube. They've got an amazing layout. If you're ever in that area, go take a look. They're in Grafton. Just phenomenal layout. I was a member there. And at the time, the guys jokingly, because at the time I had 4 analog DC Rivarossi big boys. The guys jokingly referred to me as the king of the big boys, because I've got 4 of them.
Right.
So I got an email address, and I had to change email providers. I got an email address. I became bigboyking@hotmail.com.
Wow.
Sounds a little perverted.
To anybody non-hobby related, mostly trade related, yes.
Yeah, exactly. But so it's just the whole thing. I've been nuts about trains ever since I was a kid, and I'm just happy that where I'm at now. I mean, I've had a chance to talk to, deal with, work with some of the best people in the hobby. And it's just funny that now I look back on 40 years of having a really good time, and it's not just about the trains anymore. I mean, I've gone out and done helicopter stuff with guys. I have a friend of mine. He's actually has, I think I can't remember the scale, but it's like 6 feet long. He's actually got a turbine-powered Airwolf.
No way. That's awesome. It better play the music every time it's flying.
This thing is terrifying, because it sits there and you can literally hear the turbines wind up and the rotors
man,
around. And
that's wild.
flies amazing. And the funny thing is he asked me one time, we'd gone out, where was I can't remember where we were, but it was one of those big get-togethers where everybody brings out their planes and their helicopters.
Yeah.
And he asked me if I wanted to fly it. And I said no.
I don't want to be the one to crash it.
I don't want to be the one to crash it. But so, I mean, I've done that, and I mean, it's just so neat that I look back on it all, and there's just so much. There are so many good memories that it's not just about the trains, it's about the memories and the people I've met and all of that.
Right.
So,
well,
it's just,
and thanks to all of it, just hobbies in general. Think if, the human society had never come up with extracurricular activities like this to do, and we just stuck with pounding rocks into, little rock figures of humans. And that's as far as we ever got. How boring would that be?
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, I don't even know where to go, because there are so many things that think about all of the things that we as people have accomplished, because the first thought was, hey, I wonder if I can fill in the blank. And whether it was, hey, I wonder if I can make my HO scale train have a sound system. Done it.
Right.
Hey, I wonder if I can actually build a miniature helicopter that flies. Done it.
Yeah.
Hey, I wonder if I can pick whatever big world problem. Hey, I wonder if I can cure cancer. Eventually, we'll probably get there.
I guarantee there's already a cure. I think
it's out there. I think we just don't know about it yet.
Oh no, we definitely. Well, I think the people that run this world know about it. I don't think they're gonna ever give it out to all the little people beneath them. That's my theory. I could be completely wrong in that, though.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know what to say, because I mean, there's part of me says maybe we know about it and nobody wants to talk about it, or maybe we don't realize we know about it. We have it in our hand. We just don't realize we have it in our hand.
Well, so not to be political, and this is going to be a little bit political, and I'm not going too deep into it, but they say that, our government is the ones that run the country. It's not the president, and it's not, like the Congress or the Democrats or whatever. It's these higher ups that literally are the ones that run the country and choose what gets to be said and what doesn't get to be said. And the president ends up just being a puppet for whatever they need to be delegated, whatever. So my theory is, if that's anywhere close to being true, I'm thinking there's people above the governments of all the worlds that control what's being told to them to do. And I think those are the 1%ers. And those 1%ers have all the answers to every life's mystery. And they have all the cures for everything. That's my theory. Now, I could be totally wrong in all of that.
Well,
but
here's what I'll say. To some of that, I kind of agree with you, because I think that 1% is out there.
Oh, so do I.
Do they have all the answers? I'm not
They
sure.
probably have most of them.
I don't know if any of them. Yeah.
I think they have the answer to the aliens. I really think there are aliens, and they probably have contact with them.
That I believe.
Yeah.
Because to get completely off of models for a second, and we'll come back in a minute. One of my jobs I had was I was in charge of electrical maintenance on a museum ship in Bremerton, Washington. It's the ex-USS Turner Joy. It's a Forrest Sherman class destroyer. Feel free to look it up on the internet. The Turner Joy's big claim to fame was she was one of the 2 destroyers that was involved in the Tonkin Gulf incident that got us more involved in Vietnam. So she was a museum ship, and we had a local group of ghost hunters. And they used to like to come and do investigations on the ship. And we were like, yeah, sure, hey, no problem. Up until this particular event happened, I wasn't really a believer in ghosts. But I mean, I was also willing to I was willing to say, hey, I don't, but if you do, that's
Right.
okay.
Right.
And so these groups would come in, and one group came in one night, and we had areas in the ship where, okay, hey, put one group here, another group here, another group here, and let them do their thing. And we would know, hey, they're not going to interfere with each other, and on and on and on. We got one group started, and they came back to me and they said, hey, we're having a problem. We're using an EMF meter.
Yeah.
If you've watched any of those shows, you know what they do.
I watch a lot of them.
I do like them now. I mean, some of them I look at and go,
Some of them are questionable, definitely.
But so they came and they said, we think this EMF meter's messed up. Can you help us? Yeah, sure. And so we went back down to their little area, and I'm showing them this, and I'm realizing it's actually not. It's picking up an EMF field when it's supposed to, but it's still picking one up when it's not supposed to. And then it's not picking up one over here when it's not supposed to. So this should be a yes, this should be a no, but it's not. And this should be a no, and it is. So we sat and fiddled, and finally I said, you know what? I'll give it a shot. And I said, is there anybody here with us? And the meter went black, flashed all the way back on, and then went off. And I'm like,
there's your answer.
Okay, wait a minute.
In turn became a ghost investigator.
At that point, I was like, okay, and I asked a few more questions, and it was answering me yes or no.
Yikes!
And it's like, okay, you know what?
I can do your job.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm okay now. I'm done. We can go. And it's not like I'm afraid of them or anything, but it was an eye-opening experience just to have something where
tangible.
Hey, I can't explain this.
Right.
But
yeah, it's definitely weird.
So the alien thing, I absolutely agree with you on, because I'm not stupid enough to believe that this is the only planet in the entire universe where life can grow.
With our universe being as big as it is, come on now. And even if we are the only ones, then where the aliens are coming from have got to be some sort of time travel, or maybe in a whole nother universe. I mean, if you can see those YouTube videos or those ancient alien shows or whatever, and they say that the spaceship can literally disappear within a split second, that's how fast they're going. They can get to the moon in just probably a few minutes. They could get to the other side of our galaxy in probably 10 to, an hour or something, if they're going that quick.
Well, I mean, think about it. Just think about what we know so far. If you were to travel the speed of light, you can get around the planet, I think it's like 7.25 times in a second.
Right. Yeah.
The whole scene from the first Superman movie with Christopher Reeve.
Right.
Starts flying the Earth backwards. I mean, when we stand here on Earth and we look up at the sun in the morning, that's kind of a form of time travel, because that's not where it's actually at now. That's where it's at and what it looked like 9 minutes ago, because that's how far away it is.
Yeah.
And so
well, with it being as big as it is, and it moves as slow as it does in our sky or in our vision, I mean, it's only this far, difference, and it still looks like it's in the same spot anyways.
But
anyway. I think in the modeling world, it would be neat to have more opportunities to model favorite TV shows or programs that you like. Like, say, for instance, perfect example, your Once Upon a Time, section of your layout. That's something that you particularly liked enough to say, hey, I want to model it as much as I can or as best as I can. And if, say, all you watched was ghost hunter shows, it'd be virtually impossible to kind of capture one particular show and say, oh yeah, I remember that scene, because it's not, those shows aren't that popular. So to kind of like bridge that gap, you would have to have like I interviewed William Sampson. William
Oh,
Sampson.
I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah, he modeled ancient not ancient antique archaeology, American Pickers.
Yep.
So many people know what that is, and if you don't, you're a rare person that don't know what that is.
Yep.
So that's a reality show being brought into modeling era, and it worked pretty good. But it would be neat to have so many more ideas and possibilities to choose from to put on your layout if you wanted for modern day stuff, not stuff from the 80s and the 70s like we have already today.
Well, and I mean, there's so many things you could do. I mean, to be able to express yourself that way. I mean, I have a friend of mine. He's actually a cartoon guy. He likes to collect old comic books and cartoons and things like that. But he does have a little bit of an HO scale railroad. He's got all these. He's got like, you remember the old TV series, The Munsters?
Yeah.
The Herman and Lily. Yeah, he's got the Munsters car.
So do I.
It's not. Oh, look at that!
And this is a 3D printed version in HO 187 scale. So it's not the Johnny Lightning 164 scale. This is actually HO.
Cool.
Yeah.
He's got one of those. Yours, I will say yours, and Bill, don't be offended if you're watching this. Yours looks better.
Well, mine's actually the scale.
Right. And
for a trade layout.
His actually is the Johnny Lightning one.
Yeah, that's the only company that made that car in the closest scale you can get to HO is Johnny Lightning. No, Hot Wheels didn't make it, and no other company for that small of a scale made it. So yeah, that's why he has that.
Right, but then the one thing he did do is he bought the correct van and then repainted it and decaled it himself. He did the Mystery Machine.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Yes.
He did the Mach 5 from Speed Racer. That one he actually took. He literally, and I have never seen anybody put this much work into a car before. He literally sat there. He started with just a solid block of styrene.
Oh my gosh.
And cut and sanded to get the actual body of it. And
you can find that car on eBay. Hot Wheels had a very small limited run of 187 scale vehicles. And they even had a much smaller scale, or not much smaller scale, much smaller series of movie TV cars. Super small version of that. And they made 3 to 4 or 5 different versions of Speed Racer cars for 187 scale. So he could have just waited and not spent nearly as much time on that.
Well, he's probably got hundreds of hours in this thing. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
But it's like you put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
And then I've had other people. I actually had a friend of mine. He does 1 to 20.3 G scale.
Jeez.
Which, if you're not familiar with it, if you look at Bachmann has a series they call the Big Haulers. That's 1 to 20.3.
Wow.
It's chunky. I mean, it's heavy equipment. But he is actually a fan of the TV actor Claude Akins. He was Sheriff Lobo in BJ and the Bear. But before that, he was in a TV series called Moving On, and he played a truck driver named Sonny Pruitt. And so I actually came across, it was the correct model. It wasn't quite the correct year, but I managed to backdate it, and I painted him a Sonny Pruitt Peterbilt in 1 to 20.3.
Wow.
And it completely started on a lark. The only reason I started, I was going through a flea market and spotted this, and it was a plastic model kit.
Mm-hmm.
Your typical Ertl AMT
Right.
model kit. And it was already put together and everything, but so all I had to do was kind of modify the existing model and repaint it. So I had it kind of easy, but I made it for him. It's like, hey, there you go. And he's like, oh, this is cool, man. So he has Sonny Pruitt pulling a lumber trailer on his lumber railroad.
That's awesome.
But it's just, I get a kick out of all the things we can do now.
Right.
Just because people are willing to try.
Well, that, and definitely I'd say 3D printing has opened the door for so many new things.
Oh, yes.
I mean, vehicles in general. I mean, you had some buildings were already TV movie themed from, model companies, but the vehicles weren't. And now we have vehicles we can print that are, perfect for anything we want to model.
Oh yeah, I mean, the DeLorean is a perfect example. Prior to you and I getting together, I had been looking, and I was to the point where I was so desperate to try and find a 187th DeLorean.
Mm-hmm.
And I was willing to even try to modify it myself, or at least try to get it to look close.
Right.
And you can't find them. They were almost non-existent.
Exactly.
And even if you did find one, it was like, okay, hey, this is probably the worst looking car I've ever seen.
So here's what's funny. But the very first DeLorean I ever got, I got the Back to the Future version, and it was a 3D solid print one, and it wasn't that great condition. I had to still sand it down and smooth it over to get the lines right. And so there's no interior, no nothing, but it had the shape of a DeLorean, and then the description of Shapeway's designer, he put a link down for a PDF file for the decals for the windows and the logos and all that stuff for the DeLorean. I was like, okay, well, to get the best print I can, I think it was like $35. And then I didn't have a printer that could do it, so I sent that file over to a friend of mine, Dave's Decals, who I use for most of my stuff.
Yeah, I think you mentioned him before. Yeah,
and I sent him that, and I sent him the model once I got the model, so he had the correct model to size everything up with testing it and then printing it. So he printed me, I think, like 4 or 5 of the sheets for that, and that was the first DeLorean I got. And then I found a DeLorean, or one of the guys from the Massachusetts show I met sent me another DeLorean, just a stock one. And I had to modify the whole rear end and do everything to make it a Back to the Future car. And then I finally went to MPE, the ones that make the DeLoreans, and I found 2 Back to the Future cars in Germany that I had to pay like buku bucks for. And then that was right when the pandemic started, and they weren't going to ship to the United States because they closed the borders down.
Right.
So I say, where can you ship? So I had to like see which of my friends lived in any of these foreign countries that they can ship to, so they can then ship to me. So it took me like 5 months to get the 2 DeLoreans, but I finally got them.
No, I know. See, you went through it with a DeLorean. I did it for the Hogwarts Express.
I just got that. No kidding. Yesterday in the mail from a friend. There's questionable size scaling to that damn train.
Yes,
but it looks cool.
It looks cool. And
yes,
and I will admit, yeah, I'm a Harry Potter guy. Love watching the movies. I've read all the books. I can't count how many times. But so when the train first came, when Bachman released it in the United States, I said, okay, this is pretty cool. I went out and I bought one.
Yeah.
It's a bummer though, because Bachman's license, and I've talked with a couple people at Bachman, and their license includes they can sell the sets, nothing else. They can't sell like individual passenger coaches for the train.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes, they can't do that.
Wow.
They only sell sets because of the way their license is written. However, Hornby in Europe, their license was written so that they could sell sets and they could sell individual coaches. And so I got the Bachmann set and I liked it. The only way I was able to come up with any extra coaches for it was I was buying them off of eBay, and it was people where, hey, they just wanted the locomotive so it could sit on a shelf.
Right.
Okay, fine. Excuse me, sorry. But so I got to the point because the train in the movie is actually pulling 6 cars.
Okay.
So I got to the point where I had the locomotive and 6 cars.
Nice.
And the one thing that kept bugging me was if you look at it, if you take the train and hold it up to the screen and look at it while you're watching the movie, it doesn't seem quite right.
Right.
It seems like it's a little off. And so I said, you know what, just for giggles. And I got a hold of a friend of mine who lives in Britain, and he actually had the Hornby one. And hey, what do you think of? And da 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 da, back and forth and back and forth. And he said, well, the thing to remember is first off, the Bachmann one is actually not based on it's based on the movie locomotive, which has been modified from the way the locomotive actually looked when it started its life.
Makes sense.
And then the scaling is off a little bit. And he said, and the most important feature is the fact that the paint color is wrong.
Oh.
And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, Bachmann went, and there's no fault in it, but he said Bachmann went with just a straight red. He said the actual locomotive is kind of like a maroon red. And he said the Hornby locomotive, and he sent me a picture of his, which of course, as soon as he sent me the picture, it's like, oh my God, yeah, I can see the difference.
Right.
But it's a maroon red sort of a color, and the proportions are a lot better.
Go figure.
And I went crazy. I bought and I imported myself. I brought it into the country myself. I bought it from a dealer in Britain.
Mm-hmm.
I bought the locomotive, and I bought all 6 coaches because Hornby offers 6 individually numbered coaches.
Oh, wow.
So I bought the locomotive and all 6 coaches. So I have the 1 to 87.1 Bachmann Hogwarts Express.
Nice.
And then I have the 1 to 90.00 scale Hornby
Hogwarts
Express. And it's
the British one's much better.
much more accurate. And I'm not trying to badmouth Bachmann because, I mean, yeah, I've had a few, let's just say, less than stellar experiences with them. But
well, here's my theory. I don't think Bachmann has the full license, and I could be 100% wrong. But if they're going to make something not to scale perfect, when a lot of their other stuff may be more perfect, you know, if it's movie related, TV related, I wonder if they don't have the full license to create it in the exact scale. So their way of being able to offer it is to mess it up a little bit, maybe.
See, that's a possibility. See, that's actually a possibility. But the thing that I was thinking was maybe it's a matter of the fault of mass production, if you will. You know what I mean? We've got to stamp out so many of these in a hurry. If it's not perfect, it's okay as long as it's close enough.
Yeah. Well, see, I think that only because there's a video game that's been out for quite some time called Grand Theft Auto, and their latest edition, Grand Theft Auto 5, they don't have the license for any particular car manufacturer, so they mishmash 2 cars to look like something that resembles very close to, say, a classic Chevy or, you know, a brand new exotic car or something. But they don't have the full license. They have a license to produce a replica of something that looks like the exact car, but not the actual car. So I wonder if it's somewhat in the same ballpark.
Yeah, you could be, and yes, I'm familiar with that game. My 17-year-old is upstairs playing it right now.
Good for him.
But no, I mean that's certainly a possibility too. I hadn't thought about it. Maybe their license says you can produce a replica, but not an exact copy.
Right, because like I know, River Point Station trucks, they were able to get the license to make that Ford pickup truck in that scale, but they didn't get the license from Chevy to make Chevy trucks in that scale, because from what I heard over the grapevine was Chevy or GM said that scale is too small, kids are going to put it in their mouth and choke to death.
See,
or something along those lines.
Say that. I've heard that exact same thing. I have heard that about a lot of things, actually.
Right.
People are worried. I mean, Union Pacific Railroad insisted that they had to have some sort of control over the model railroad manufacturers, and part of it was they wanted to make sure their name wasn't being misused, but they also wanted to make sure that somebody wasn't going to try and tag them for some problem the manufacturer had created.
Jeez, that's crazy. But I guess, I mean, who knows?
Well,
been trains forever, and your company, Union Pacific's been out forever.
Yeah, for pity's sakes, ladies and gentlemen, one of the major founding railroads of the United States, and that's
right.
what they were. And I will admit, I'm a fan of theirs. I mean, for pity's sakes. And you can feel free to laugh. I'm okay. 25 years ago, I said to a friend of mine, "You wait and see. Eventually, Union Pacific will bring back a big boy, if for no other reason than the PR value." And everybody that I knew thought I was crazy. Nobody's going to spend $4, $5, $6 million to bring back one of those fire-breathing monsters.
Yeah.
All you naysayers out there, I win. Thanks.
Right. Well, they did the Challenger, and I even I remember for the Bush-Clinton inauguration party, or I don't know what the actual ceremony exactly was. I didn't care back then. I was still in high school, or just right out of high school. But they had either restored or there was an existing one out there in America of a Challenger, and they drove the Challenger from somewhere in the Midwest all the way to the LA train depot, the main Amtrak train depot for the Bush Clinton inauguration presentation. I don't know, whatever. And I got wind of it right when the internet started, of where it was going to be the morning of before it got there. So me and a friend drove out to the high deserts of California where it was parked for the night, went to that train yard, and we followed that thing 3/4 of the way into LA. And we were probably 100 miles from my house, which was 2 hours away from LA. Well, 2 hours because of traffic, but if there was no traffic, you'd probably get there in an hour. So figure 2 hours away, that's by freeway. And then you're not taking the freeway, you're taking all the little side routes that follow the train track to follow this train. And I watched that Challenger just going down the California Railway, and it was one of the neatest things I've ever seen. So if they could do the Challenger, the next step would have been to do that big boy.
Yeah, I said the exact same thing. I was like, because 3985, which is Challenger, was essentially an employee thing.
Oh, okay.
Because basically, so the 3 steam locomotives at Union Pacific, each one of them has kind of got a weird history. 844 is the big 484 Northern, and that's the Union Pacific refers to 844 as the living legend. That's their nickname for her.
Well, it's a living now.
Yeah. Well, and that's why they use it. Rail fans refer to her as the survivor, because 844 is the only steam locomotive that is still in service for its original owner and has never been retired.
Really?
Yes.
Even when it was parked at the fairgrounds over there, it was
Well,
still in
844
use.
was 844 was never 844 was sent to, which is the big northern, the 484 northern,
Yeah.
was sent to Cheyenne, and it was sitting there, and it was stored serviceable in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Oh my gosh.
And then and it never got retired. And then I think it was 60 or 61, they brought it back to do excursion trips. And then 1985, 3985, which was the 4664 Challenger, it had been on display in front of the train station in Cheyenne. And some employees in the mechanical department said, hey, if you're willing to foot the bill for the parts, we'll provide free labor.
Wow.
And Union Pacific said, okay.
Right.
And so they restored 3985. 4014 was in, I think it was the Pomona County Fairgrounds.
They call it the LA County Fairgrounds. Yeah.
Yeah, the LA County, that's it. The LA County Fairgrounds, that's right. It was sitting there, and it had been donated by Union Pacific to sit there in the fairgrounds.
Right, because it sat right next to the biggest diesel locomotive. They were like side by side.
Yeah, the Centennial. The two of them sat there side by side. But so when it was actually retired, and when they decided in, I think it was 14, that they were going to do this, or maybe it was 13 they were going to do this, they went, because out of the original 24 big boys, there were, I think, 6 of them surviving, 7 of them.
Wow.
And they said, which one do we want to try and get a hold of? Which one's in the best shape? And
Southern California
was the one that was in the best shape. And so
right.
They pulled it out of the fairgrounds, and I've got some pictures surfaced on the internet that I downloaded of them literally laying temporary track across the Pomona Speedway to get it out to the tracks.
Yeah.
So I've got pictures of it.
And for anybody listening, the Pomona Fairgrounds is actually at an elevated level that isn't coherent with where the main train track is. It's probably a few hundred feet higher than where the main train track, to get that stupid engine to the main train track for it to be towed. So imagine that engineering feat. Would have been awesome.
Yeah, a locomotive. Imagine taking a locomotive that weighs on the order of 700 tons.
Right.
And having to do that with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, somebody was really...
more people to know, I've been to that Pomona Fairgrounds my whole life, because that's where our main fair was. California doesn't have a state fair. We have county fairs, and the LA County Fair is the biggest and best in Southern California. So let me tell you, I've been to that fair too many times, and I've been on that big boy too many times. So how about that?
No, I can't.
But yeah, that's pretty neat that you have those trains.
No, I've always been that way, and I've been really lucky. Some of my memories also include, I mean, working with and being inspired by some of these great model railroaders. And I look at it, and it just, like I said, I look back at it and I just feel so lucky. I mean,
it sounds like, from how you describe it, you had a pretty good life.
Oh yeah,
the things that you've loved.
I've had a good time, and I mean, I got to be friends with the guy who owned Chesapeake and Ohio number 614, which was a big 484 northern type locomotive. Got to go for a ride in the cab of that.
Nice.
Worked at a tourist railroad in Connecticut on a pair of steam locomotives.
That's cool.
A tourist railroad in Washington State, pulling passengers around with steam locomotives. got to go for a cab ride in the locomotive at the California State Railroad Museum. I mean, I've been really, really lucky, and it's kind of neat. But I also look at it and I say, I don't know how to put it. I wish there are so many more things I want to see us do as far as a hobby goes.
Yeah.
And I think it's neat. I mean, you're going that way with the stuff you're doing, and I've got other friends of mine who are doing stuff, and I'm doing stuff, and it's neat to see where we were, and it's cool to see where we are, and it's cool to see where we're going.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because me and Ken Patterson, we were talking about the future of the model car hobby in HO 187 scale. And, you know, that future is already here as in RC cars. So we were thinking, you know, what's the next step? And it would be to have the lights in that Ecto 1 light up and drive down the street with the siren going. So you have a speaker, you have the automotive or the automatronics to make it move, and you have the lights all going at the same time. That's kind of the next step, because I don't know about any of those European RC 187 scale people out there. I know they have lights in their trucks, and they're 90% trucks or commercial vehicles. And I know they have the RC capability to make it move. I don't know if it has sound. You know, I don't know if you hit a button and it turns the diesel truck on. And then if a car's in their way or cut you off, if you can blow the horn or not. I don't know, because I don't really care to watch any of those YouTube videos. But that's the next step. If they already have lights and automation, the next step is sound, to make it sound real.
Yeah, see, and I mean, how amazing would that be to actually have a highway on your layout with cars moving?
Right. Here's what's funny. I like to look at the ironic, weird, annoying side of things a lot, because I like to annoy people. I would love for one of the train companies that make the turbine trains, you know, the rare turbine trains models, I would love them to put a speaker system in there that is so loud that it annoys the crap out of you as soon as you turn that sound on. Because a jet engine in that train would literally be so loud that you wouldn't want to be behind it or next to it. You would have to wear earphones in order to deal with it. So if you had it running on your layout and you couldn't turn the sound down, oh, that would be awesome. Like as soon as you put that on and you put power to the tracks, the turbine started and it got louder and louder and louder, and you couldn't control it. So in order to run it, you had to have that sound at full blast just to annoy the crap out of you.
You know, it's funny you mentioned, because I have one of the Athearn turbines, the veranda turbines. Beautiful locomotive, runs great. I've listened to recordings, so I know what the original sounded like.
Right.
I mean, yeah, the quality of the sound is accurate. The actual volume of the sound
right.
So much.
Yeah. And then the next step, add actual heat coming out of those, so it melts all your plastic bridges that it goes under.
See, now you're just being mean. Now you're just being mean.
Well, if you want a prototypical turbine steam engine, that's why it didn't go, because it melted the bridges and a bunch of other reasons.
They were horrific. I've got a picture of one. I'll have to try and see if I can find it. They were starting one of the 3-unit turbines, and this is the actual real life one. I think it's in Cheyenne. It might be in Laramie. But they were actually trying to start the turbine for the locomotive. They overfueled the turbine. And as the turbine kicked over, literally this locomotive belched this wall of fire out of all of the vents on the back of the unit.
Awesome.
And somebody just happened to catch a picture of it. And so literally it looks like the entire back of the locomotive is a fireball.
That's
and you
the
sit there and go,
to actually have fire come out of those turbines.
Yeah, Let's see if we can burn this thing up.
Well, it's funny. So in the model car world, It's been a thing since like the 60s with all the old model car kits, but it's to make custom cars like lead sleds and just
Mhm.
custom cars from like the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. And one of the big things in the 70s were flamethrower kits for your exhaust. You hit a switch on your dash and you let the gas pedal up, and that back exhaust coming out would just shoot flames because you had a spark plug right at the tip of the exhaust pipe, not
Mhm.
in the exhaust pipe, but at the very tip. So that's where the exhaust fumes caught. It would catch that, turn it on, and it just spit flames out. I thought, how cool would that be to emulate that look in a model car form? And then it would catch every tabletop, on
Yeah.
fire because they put the tablecloths on top of it, you know? And I thought, well, that's not going to work. But then I thought, how neat would it be to do that to an even smaller scale, like 187 scale, and then melt the whole entire car down in one
Yeah,
shot?
just watch the car turn into a puddle of goo.
Right.
No, my thing is I wonder just how crazy you can get because as far as like, can we get to a point where okay, hey, we literally like okay, we've gotten to a point now where hey, look, I've got a 187th car. It looks exactly like the Ectomobile. I've got a 187th car look exactly like the DeLorean. I've got a 187th version of a 1957 Kenworth
Mhm.
that's painted to look like the tractor trailer from BJ and the Bear. I have uh, what else? I'm working on the Bumblebee. Um, I'm working on a bunch. I get all these ideas and then I get started and then oh hey I got another idea and start on
That's
that
every
one.
modeler.
Yeah, I think so. But so I've got a bunch started. But so how cool would it be to get to a point like you said? It's really cool when the Millennium Falcon lands and there's C3PO and R2D2 sitting there.
Right.
Wouldn't it be cool to get to a point where hey you can have a 187th scale Burt Reynolds standing next to his black 1978 Trans Am?
Yeah, that would be cool.
I think that would be a cool place to go to get to a point where you can have figures that are so detailed that instead of oh hey it's close where you can actually look at it and say hey that actually does look like Burt Reynolds back in
Yeah.
1978.
Well, that's like with your Back to the Future card, those figurines that I was able to get, those were 3D printed, but the 3D print in something that small can only do so much. So they're
Mm-hmm.
lacking detail, but for the most part, exactly with the way I was able to paint them, who each character is and where
Oh,
they are.
absolutely. And see, right now that's where we're at. But I mean, imagine if we got to the point with figures
Right.
where we're at, where we could do that.
Yeah.
Imagine if we could get to the 3D place where the 3D printing place where, hey, look, I can print it out. And if you look at it under a magnifying glass, that's Christopher Lloyd's face on there.
Well, that's the thing with 3D printing and then painting. I've said it in a couple of the episodes. The biggest downfall I have in my 3D printer, which is actually right there, just sitting there doing nothing for over a year now. I can't figure out the programming. Even I had a friend of mine come over and figure it out, and then he figured somewhat of it out. And then I had the leveling table adjusted perfect when I first got it. And then over, I don't know, half a year, 3/4 of a year, the leveling table messed up and it got unlevel and I can't level it now. I don't know. So that's the biggest problem is the learning curve on how to figure out to get all the dimensions and everything in right to scale whatever you see down to the scale you desire. And then the next problem, and this is the biggest problem, which no 3D printer has of yet, once you print it, you should be able to paint it. So, perfect example, you would be able to see Christopher Walken's face painted on that figurine that got printed because most people can't paint nearly as good to make a Christopher Walken face or any other face, no matter what printed detailed model you have. So you need something to print it and paint it.
See, and that I'll agree with that definitely, because I'm sitting here. Here's my desk.
Right.
You can. It's just I like to get the undecorated HO figures and paint them up, because in that way I can say, hey, look, I guarantee you nobody's got one like this.
Right.
Nobody's got one like this anywhere, period. But by the same point in time, when I'm sitting there with a paintbrush, where'd my brush go? My brush disappeared. Well, I've got one of those tiny, it's a 0-0 brush.
Wow.
Try painting eyeballs on an HO
No.
scale figure. No.
I won't try it because I know I can't pull it off.
See, I can, but literally I look like I'm some sort of an idiot, because I'm literally, hold on, I think I said that back.
Well, you have to be able to see where the tip of that brush is and the proportion, or put it in the right place on that little tiny head.
See, this is a figure. This is one friend of mine sent me a bunch of them used, so I'm going to repaint it. But it's actually one of the pewter metal figurines, and so I'm going to repaint it to look like a conductor. But so I sit here and I've got the big magnifying goggles that come down over your face, and obviously I'm wearing glasses already. But so, oh damn it, I messed it up, and then I got to start over again.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I have another theory that has nothing to do with hobbies, but will definitely help the hobby world whenever this idea comes out. But I have a feeling that 20 years-ish, they'll have a contact that you can just shove in your eye that is so magnetically advanced that it can zoom in like a camera, but to absolute perfect focus vision, like Go-Go Gadget eyes. I have a feeling
George
that something
LaForge from Star Trek.
Yeah. So obviously it's all in movies, sci-fi movies today, where that idea exists. But the actual idea of it is going to be a possibility. And will it be expensive when it first comes out? Hell yeah. But will it become so normal and so everywhere at any drugstore or anything in the future? Yes. And you'll be able to buy it, and you'll have perfect vision 24 hours a day, and zoom in, zoom out, and you won't need your magnifying glass. You'll just be able to, zoom in with your eyeball and be able to do it. Yeah, that's a thought. In the next 20 years, that idea is going to be a thing, like an actual real thing.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, because I think that's kind of the next step in getting rid of these things.
Right.
Because it'll be a medical thing where they'll figure out, hey, if we do this, we can do like an implant. Hey, we can give this person an implant, and then they don't have to wear glasses.
See, that'll be the start of it. The implant will be the start, and then they'll figure out a way to make it just like a contact, where it's disposable. If it breaks, you just take it out of your eyelid and you throw it away and go pop a new one in. And then what comes after that? Oh, who knows?
But of course, that being said, I don't know if I'll live to see that. But
who knows? And it may take longer than 20 years. It may take shorter than 20 years. But I just have a feeling that's going to be a thing, 100% thing.
Yeah. No.
And if I could buy stock in that, then I would, but I don't think there is a stock out there that exists for that idea.
I don't think that the eyeballs are us stock exchange isn't quite open.
Right. But there's a video link a friend of mine sent me of a commercial for, what was the commercial for? I don't even know what the commercial for was, but it was a computer generated HO scale layout of a figurine coming to life. So they made an HO scale layout of a downtown like 1950s scene. They took a HO scale figurine and then they put it in the system, probably did a stop motion animation, and then digitally replaced each frame with, animation.
CGI character.
Yeah, and so the point, I don't know what even the point of the whole commercial was. I can't remember. But the idea of the commercial was this steel figurine that's just plastic is stuck in one place, but seeing the life around him move. And then he becomes movable and everything else is still. So like, I have no idea what this was for, but it was such a neat idea. And right around that same time, this huge YouTube diorama guy that makes YouTube videos, got millions of views on every one of his videos. He was showing a system of that vehicle moving system where it's like a thing you dig out of the road, and then it's like a track, like a magnetic track, and then you put the magnet on the car and it drives the car. Well, he had one for a guy riding a bike. And I haven't looked at the idea on how the bike's legs move for the person, but the person on the bike is an HO scale figurine. But I think the company that makes that system probably offers the whole bike in itself with the figurine. So they figured out something to where the legs move up and down with the pedaling. So that system moves that bike and it makes it look like the guy is alive.
Riding his bicycle.
Yeah.
That's
it's
cool.
It's such a neat idea. And even that, even Miniature Wonderland, if you look up Easter eggs of Miniature Wonderland, it'll show you all the movie things they have, all the little hidden Easter eggs, obviously, but they have a lot of their figurine. Well, I can't say a lot. They have a good amount of figurines actually moving. So like one guy's chopping wood, another guy's, whatever. And they figured out a way to make 187 scale figurines move, which was a neat idea.
See, and I've seen some of the cruder stuff I've seen. Like for instance, I met one guy. He had done. He had a conductor or brakeman, something like that, and he had taken a regular figure. He cut the arm off. He modified it. He had drilled just a hair-sized hole for a minuscule steel rod to go through it, but he had it set up so the figure was standing there on the ground, but the arm with the lantern was going up and down.
Nice.
And it was all because there was a rod through the shoulders, and that was the one part of it that was kind of the only disappointment, because he reattached the arm to cover the pin on the other side, but you could see the little mechanism that was making the shaft turn that would make the arm down. But that was the only real disappointment in it. And even then, it's still, he had painted it really well. And if you didn't stop and like get right in there, you wouldn't see it. You would never even notice it.
See, that'll be an interesting next step for figurines in this scale, is definitely to fine tune, maybe make them hollow and make them two-piece. So you can put them together like a clamshell, glue them together, but the whole inside's hollow, so you can literally put little kind of mechanics in them to move or whatever.
Right. Almost.
I mean, 3D printing has the capability.
Yeah.
But you just have to design it for that.
Right. Well, and I think you made a good point. I think we're already kind of well on our way there, because I mean, I can remember this was several years ago. I remember I used to sell, I think it was 1/8 or 1/10 scale. It was a big RC boat, and I mean, it was a big RC boat. It was like 8 feet long.
Jeez.
But it was a racing boat, and so It's got the side-by-side
Could you sit in it?
co-pilot. You couldn't sit in it, but it had figures in it. But all you
Wow.
could see was like their head and shoulders. But so if you
Right.
controlled it to turn the rudder so that the boat would turn left, the pilot and the co-pilot, their heads would turn and
That's
look
really
in the
neat.
direction you were steering. Now, admittedly, there was all that space inside the boat under them
Yeah.
to have all that stuff going up through there. But see, I think that's kind of
There's another guy. There's another guy doing RC. He's big on Facebook. I don't know, big enough for a lot of people to have seen his stuff, but he's taking like action figures, say like this big of action figures, and he's taking them apart, putting mechanics in them, changing heads, changing arms, making kind of apocalyptical kind of figurines, but he's making them completely mechanical to play music. So you can see their little fingers with their guitar moving like this. And the mechanisms in the guitar are like little teeth. So it makes the fingers bounce up and down. And he's making the mouse move up and down, the heads. And it's the neatest thing. And like action figure ever. And I mean, they're not actual action figures, but he's making his own versions of them by existing action figures and just piecing them all together.
Sure. And see, that's kind of awesome because, I mean, think about, okay, let's say we get to a point where, okay, just for the sake of argument, 10 years down the road, we've got 187 scale figurines that can do that. They walk up to each other and there's a sound system there, so it sounds like they're talking to each other. Hey, Fred, how you doing today? Oh, I'm doing pretty good, Joe. How are you? And it looks like all of that is going on. I mean, see, that would be literally, at that point, you're literally actually almost bringing that world to life. Your little HO world, you've now got living people in there.
There's a movie that Matt Damon was in called Downsizing. And these people, they figured out a shrinking mechanism to shrink people down and shrink everything down so the amount of people on Earth didn't cause as much damage on Earth because there's already too many people. And so we couldn't stop the birthing of people being made. But in order to solve that issue, we shrink them down to 3 inches tall and have a whole entire civilization of people that little, and a whole, everything was that small, houses and all that stuff. And if you could figure out how to mechanicize something that big, the next step is just to shrink it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller to where we literally will have moving, talking, storyline figurines on HO scale layout and dioramas.
Oh, see, and now, and something you just said, now, see, and this is what happens to me. See, so you said storyline. So imagine, oh, hey, now you've got your DeLorean and you've got your figures. Marty, you've got to come back with me. Right. To the future. It's your kids, Marty. Something's got to be done about your kids.
Right.
Imagine actually you can literally have that scene out of the movie suddenly on
I do have that scene out of a movie, all in HO scale. Have you seen it?
I've seen the pictures of it, but I mean with like audio,
right,
and
sound,
that are moving, and
moving, right,
whole 9 yards.
That's kind of my next step within my little dioramas. I want to add sound with a push of a button, so you get the realism of a recorded scene of that particular time and place of the diorama, and you have a better understanding of what's happening. Because just to see a still picture or a still scene, you get it, but you don't fully get it. So if you have the audio in the background playing by just a push of a button, I think that's the next step in my diorama building, is to put audio, music. Like I have a 64 Impala from the movie Up in Smoke with Cheech and Chong.
Oh yeah.
And in my opinion, the funniest part of that whole Up in Smoke movie is in the beginning, where Cheech and Chong are sitting in that Impala smoking that blunt, and the smoke is engulfed inside of the car. But Cheech goes,
how's my driving? And they're parked on a curb in front of a no parking sign, and then the cop pulls up. I want to create that scene with the whole audio dialogue of that scene happening with a push of a button. Because I think it would be like one of the funniest parts is the cop goes, "Can I see your license?" And Cheech is so high, he looks at the officer, says, "Isn't it on the back of the car?" I mean, the whole scene of that one scene, every dialogue, and I want the smoke coming out of the car.
Yeah.
I think just with the push of a button, how cool would that be to recreate?
No, see, and I've thought about that because, I mean, like, for instance, okay, using the DeLorean as an example again, wouldn't it be cool have the DeLorean sit there and every once in a while, the puff of the steam coming out of the coolers on the back?
Yeah, that would be cool.
And I mean, I know that, I mean, obviously, like, okay, this is kind of cheating, but like in my yard on my railroad, I have a sound module sitting underneath of it. So if there's nothing happening, I can turn on this sound module and you can hear guys talking and working inside the engine.
That's neat.
You actually can't see them doing anything.
Right, but you hear it. So it makes it sound like it's alive.
Right. And then if I get really goofy with it, okay, hey, because like the steam locomotive that's normally in there has smoke and all of that. So I can park the locomotive in there and turn it on and it'll sit there and you'll see smoke trickling out of the vent in the room. And you can hear them talking. And of course, the locomotive's got its own sound system, so you can hear its air compressor running and all of that.
Yeah.
You can sit there and it almost seems like it's come to life. And I think the next step would be, have little bitty figures that great Scott!
Yeah.
Do all of that sort of thing.
Well, there's a company called Evans Design that made they make cop car sirens and fire engine sirens and stuff for like model cars and diecast cars.
Yeah.
Well, they created the Ecto 1 or the Ecto siren for like a 1/25th scale model car. And so I heard about that and I bought it, but the speaker itself it's big. It's, I think, 1 inch wide by 1 inch wide. It's just a round circle, but it's a big circle. So
too big for an
I'm trying to move stuff on my layout here, or my module. Hold on, as I'm moving wires everywhere. I want to show you the kind of setup that I have for that speaker system. Will it work? Okay, so yeah, so say the lights are on the car, which they're not, but I put the speaker in the firehouse, and with the switch on the back of the module here, you can turn the siren on.
Oh, see, now that's cool.
Yeah, but it's such an annoying siren that you can't keep it on for too long.
No, you can't. That I agree. That you can't tolerate that siren.
No. And I've watched that movie 1,000 times, and I realized they put just the right amount of siren in both movies to not annoy you.
Yeah. By the way, I should mention that scene you've got there with the firehouse. That's another thing. I'm working on it.
Nice. That's the exact company that I got mine from. In fact, they came out with that model, that the HO scale of that model about a year or two before I got mine, and then quickly stopped selling that scale. And I never understood why. So I had to bargain and barter with the guy who runs that company and say, if I build you an Ecto car, will you re-offer that in HO scale? And he said, okay. So he has an Ecto, and now anybody else that's wanting an HO version of that building has the opportunity to get one. Yeah, but I think, and I'm not 100% sure.
I had looked for too. That was something I'd spent a lot of time looking for.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think I'm right that out of the reissued version of that building, that scale, I might be the first person to have the reissued version of that scale. But I might be wrong too.
Well, no, whether you do or you don't. I mean, I just, like I said, my big thing was because I've been a fan since '84. I
Yeah,
literally, I saw the movie a couple of days after it came out,
right.
and I've always been a big Bill Murray fan. I mean, ever since the Stripes and Caddyshack
Right.
and Army training, sir. But no, I've been a huge fan of his, and so I decided early on that I was going to do some sort of a Ghostbusters Easter egg on the layout, and then ran across you with the car. And I
Right.
had found about the same time I found you was when I found the building.
Nice.
And so it's like, hey, wait a minute, because I had actually gone out. I was trying to scratch build the firehouse.
Ugh.
Yeah, don't do that. It's a fairly straightforward looking building. It
For the
doesn't
most
look
part.
real complicated. Yeah, go ahead. Try and build that from scratch.
Yeah. I mean, you got those, I don't even know what they are, but those legs on the side of the building that seem to hold up that top gray part of the stripe. I mean, to recreate those legs or whatever you call those,
I
that's just too much work.
No, I sat there. I was trying to use dowel rods. I was using dowel rods in a lathe, trying to shave them down to get them to look like that.
Gosh.
And I can't tell you how many dowel rods I broke. Some of them accidentally, some of them not so accidentally. You stupid piece of.
Right.
But it's just, I just love all the stuff we can do in our hobbies, because
Yeah.
it's, I mean, how years ago, some of the stuff we take now, and I mean just a few years ago, some of the things that we just kind of take for granted now, we couldn't do.
Right. No, we couldn't. And we couldn't do just recently neither. It's only, I've like the biggest jump has literally been within the last, say, 5 years.
Yeah,
Before then, it was a gradual go, but now we're jumping, which is really neat. I mean, think about the RC world. That wasn't a thing, say, 6 years ago. And now it's a major thing. Like, especially in Europe, it's a major thing. Not so much here still, but Europe, there's a big amount of people that are liking the RC world in this scale.
Oh yeah, no, I know. And I mean, I keep seeing all those videos coming from over there, and I mean, I don't sit and watch them like religiously,
Right. Me
because I
neither.
mean, I don't ever see me doing. I can see me maybe someday having a few vehicles that are moving, but I don't see me ever having an actual, no kidding, look, I've got somebody operating an RC vehicle
Right.
on the layout, interacting with.
Yeah, I don't see that either. Like if I have a vehicle moving, it's gonna move for a diorama scene that's happening. So like the Ghostbusters car. If I could put the Ghostbusters car with a completely in and out track for the firehouse. So as soon as the doors open, the lights turn on, the siren comes out, and then the car turns left and then just does a U-turn back into the building.
And comes back in the back of the building.
Yeah. That's the only reason I really need that car to move. It's just for that, because I'm not going to drive that car around nobody's layout. Why? For what?
Exactly. No, and honestly, mine would be, if I was to do something like that, mine would be the exact same thing. It would literally be, hey, done.
Yeah.
But
and you just push a button for it. Push a button and it does it all.
Yeah. And it's done. And
Right.
I would be in the exact same boat. I mean, admittedly, I think it'll still be neat to have, okay, hey, look, here's the firehouse, and I'm going to have it set up so it looks like they're pulling out of the firehouse with the lights and everything going. And I may get with you and get some information about where you got that siren from, and maybe I'll mount that underneath or something.
Yeah, I put mine in the firehouse. It's sitting on the back wall of the firehouse with a piece of white cardboard hiding it. But it's super loud and super tinny. So I actually put a piece of cardboard directly in front of the speaker to kind of muffle it so it didn't sound so tinny,
Okay.
and then to quiet it down because it's a loud speaker.
Oh, I'm
Too loud for that scale.
No, I believe you. See, that's why I'm thinking, because one of the things I like to do on the HO layout, and this is where my friend Mark comes in. Mark is super, he's got an amazing eye for detail, but he
Nice.
loves to actually fully detail buildings inside and out, lights, full interiors, everything. And so I'm working on doing a full interior for the firehouse, and it'll be
That's
lighted.
cool.
So hey, look, you'll be able to look in through the doors and you'll be able to see Janine sitting at her desk back there or whatever.
I've got that already. Let me turn the lights on in here and I'll show you, because it's kind of neat. It's not that detailed, but it's detailed enough. Let me turn the screen around. So hopefully you'll see it. Hopefully, I don't know, but
Yep. Yeah.
you've got the desk and Janine back there, and then you've got the ladder on the left side, and then you got like cubby holes or lockers right there with Ghostbusters sign on there, because in the real firehouse there's a Ghostbusters sign in there as you speak right now in New York City.
Yeah, in New York. I've seen the pictures of it.
And then I put a ceiling. Well, you may not be able to see the ceiling, but I put a ceiling at this point of the building for the second floor. I think there's 3 floors, but I didn't care. I put it on there for the second floor. And then I even have, no, it's gone. But I had a pole in there that you would slide down from the second floor to the first floor, but it seems to be gone.
Well, that happens.
Yeah, but I thought you can't just have the building. You have to put a little bit of extra inside the building, make it look a little bit cooler.
Yeah. But no, so that my goal, and just pretty close to what you've got, is to have a good looking interior in there and lights and all of that. And then if I were to get that speaker, I would probably mount the speaker like underneath the layout, because the way my layout is set up, the bench work is 4 feet off the ground.
Oh, okay.
There's actual storage space underneath.
Nice.
So I could wire the speaker to be under there so it wouldn't be as loud.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. What time is it?
It's 3 o'clock.
We started this at 1.
This for about 2 hours.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's not bad. I think we've probably bored the YouTube fans long enough.
I don't know. I haven't heard any bad reviews yet. Not bad. So
I've watched a good chunk of them. I was listening to them while I was doing stuff at work yesterday. Watched a couple this morning.
Nice.
I like them. I like them.
Cool.
Keep up the good work, man. Keep it up.
Well, I'm going to. I will say that this recording, this interview, is the 5th interview in a row for the new season, and I haven't posted anything for the new season until February 1st. That's going to be the first new video. So
I'll be in March.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. Somewhere around then. Yeah.
End of March, because if I remember right, you do an interview. Are you still doing the History of series?
I haven't stopped, but I haven't actually done a new one in some time. So, I mean, I'm still going to. I just haven't done one in over a month.
No, so. It's all good. I mean, I get it, because I will give you credit. I mean, props to you, because what you're doing terrifies me. I don't think I could do it. I just don't think I could do it.
Well, I only did it because of this pandemic. I mean, if we could have went to shows, if Springfield was going to happen next weekend,
Springfield and Amherst,
right? Then there would be kind of no reason that I would have thought of to make this thing happen. But I mean, Ken Patterson also helped too, because watching his What's Neat this week and seeing the guests that he has on, it only gives you a little tiny glimpse of their world, because he's got to get through all the other stuff. So I kind of thought, well, maybe we want to know more about that person than you know, just
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
being said on that episode. But that's cool. But right on. You got anything else you want to talk about? Anything you want to say? Any kind of shout outs or anything?
The one I just say we all need to. I mean, you're doing what you're doing, and I think we all just need to keep moving forward and keep enjoying our hobby and not definitely don't give up or get dejected or anything. Because I mean, the whole project on my layout, I was telling you earlier, I got a good ways along, and then I realized I wanted to change this and change that and change control systems and this and that and the other, and the layout had, in the process of redoing all that, the layout had kind of fallen into a little bit of, shall we say, messiness.
That happens.
That happens, yeah. And so and the funny thing is I went back and I was going through everything because I have just a really shockingly bad memory. So I write notes.
Oh, you too?
Everything. Yeah. My wife says I suffer from CRS.
CRS.
Can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You can say it. I don't have no problems saying that.
Yeah,
that's me too.
I say that I suffer from CRFS.
Right. Mine's a lot of selective. Everything that my wife says, it's selective, and then everything else is I just can't remember.
But anyways, no. So I'm constantly writing notes, and I went back, and the funny thing is the deal that actually started this big round of upgrades. It had been a long time, and I've got a YouTube channel which is tiny. I mean,
I will put that in the description for people to be able to watch you and follow you and any updates you give.
Well, I will warn them. I will warn everybody out there in YouTube land now. It's behind. But so I think it was 8 months or so ago, I said, hey, I really ought to put an update video on YouTube. Haven't done it yet because I got into this great big huge project. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, it's still there. You haven't disabled the channel, so time you feel like you want to make one, that's all on you. You just do what you do when you want to do it. There's no pressure. You're not getting paid to make those YouTube channels. So
we're not getting paid.
Right. That's all on your schedule.
I am not Philip DeFranco or Adam the Woo. As much as I like those guys, I am neither of them, and I'm not getting paid for this.
Right. Yeah, I'm not getting paid for this neither. So when I decide to upload it, that's when I decide.
So I would just say, no matter who you are, where you're at, what you're doing, just enjoy it and keep going forward.
Well, that's a good message, and that's very positive. Yes, everybody, listen to Walt. He knows what he's talking about, at least for the most part. Well, Walt, if you want to stay on the video real quick, I'll end this podcast and then we'll say our goodbyes.
Okay.
Hope you like this episode, everybody. This is Walt. Seems very interesting. I enjoyed the podcast, so I hope you guys enjoy this episode, and stay tuned for the next one. Signing off. All right, everybody. That was Walt Weiss. Pretty cool guy. Pretty interesting. I didn't know he was into all that stuff. And I know it was mostly not about vehicles, but it was a lot about modeling in general, which is what this podcast is mostly about, is modeling. So the fact that he was into all these different scales and all these different parts of the hobby, super interesting. I thought it was interesting. Maybe you guys were bored. I don't know. I thought it was very interesting. And just his life in general, how he was able to be in all those different things. I've only ever been into cars, and I was in the N scale trains for like this much of my life, this much. And cars have been in it this much. So it was neat to see that he was all about all the different parts of this hobby. I think most of us just stick with one thing. If you're a model train guy, that's your world, is model trains. If you're a car guy, it's cars. But he was in planes, trains, everything. He was in it all. So that was pretty neat. It was a neat interview. And I hope you guys enjoy it. And just remember, I'm probably going to plug this with every single one of my episodes. There's a Patreon account. Please take a look at it if you haven't. That'll help me grow this channel into bigger and better places. And I got a Facebook page now that I'll also have a link to in the description. And I think from here on out, from the beginning of this new season, all of these videos, these interviews are going to go to that page and to YouTube. So upload it to YouTube, from YouTube straight to the page, and I'm not going to flood each group with individual episodes. So please go to that page if you haven't. Like it so you can get all the notifications on new videos. I mean, you guys know it's going to be uploaded every Monday anyways, but still you'll be able to see the notification on Facebook if you're not subscribed to the channel. But yeah, Patreon, the page on Facebook, and subscribe to YouTube to this channel if you like what you see, if you're not already subscribed. Every subscription and every like and every comment also shows YouTube that this is a channel worth keeping or something. I don't know. Their analytics show good things with more people that like the videos and more people that comment. And even if you watch it all the way, like the analytics show the viewing duration on most people's views. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, do all that stuff, and that'll help me help grow this channel. Until next episode, you guys stay classy out there.